Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Chapter 16, Text 7. Pravriting cha nivriting cha janana vidurasuraha na shocham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. Translation: those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truth is found in them. This chapter is titled The Divine and Demoniac Natures, and it begins with Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, listing qualities that distinguish a divine person. And the rest of the chapter is dedicated to telling what are the qualities of the demoniac persons. This is a very strong word. The Sanskrit word is asura. Srila Prabhupada has translated this as demon. Now we often think of demon as some kind of mythical figure, maybe with a human-like person with horns and fangs and maybe blood or fire coming out of their mouth, maybe a dragon's tail, a satanic kind of figure. Srila Prabhupada has used this term demon to translate asura. In the Puranic histories, we have many asuras are described. Ravana is maybe the most famous. Hiranyakashipu. These are all asuras. Here in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna describes that Dvobhuto sarge lokesmin daiva asura evacha. There are two kinds of persons within the universe. One is called godly, and the other is called asura, or not godly. Elsewhere in the Padma Purana, the distinction between the godly and the ungodly, who are otherwise called asura, or in Srila Prabhupada's language, demons, that is described, Vishnu bhakta smrito daiva asuras tad viparyaya. That those who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, they are called deva, or godly, like God. As God is effulgent, they are effulgent. They are decorated with all good qualities, whereas the demons, they are just the opposite. Whereas devotees are always thinking how to please Lord Vishnu, the demons are opposed to his superiority, and they try to establish themselves as supreme. So examples are there: Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Hiranyakashipu, Duryodhana. There are many famous examples. What is the essence of their demoniac nature? That is being described here. The first qualities of the demons, they're being described here. The beginning of the list of the qualities of demons are described by Lord Krishna. They do not know what the Vedic paths of pravriti and nivritti are. Within the Vedic literature, pravriti and nivritti are described. Pravriti means the path of following the Vedic injunctions, while at the same time having some proclivity for enjoying this material world. And nivritti means the path of renunciation. Or here, Srila Prabhupada has translated this, what is to be done and what is not to be done. Within the law books, the scriptural law books, within every human society, there is some set of scriptural laws. Any civilized society, certain things should be done, certain things should not be done. So those who are godly or religious, they follow the laws of God as given in scripture. And those who are not, they do not follow these things. They are demoniac. It's a very strong term, but then if we consider that every living being is simply meant to serve God, to serve Vishnu, and to not to do that is a great aberration on the part of the jiva or living entity who refuses to do so and makes so much philosophy and so much logical reason for being an asura or demon. So practically speaking, what's going on in human society at the present time, we don't see any big Ravanas or very seriously demoniac people, although in recent history we've had Hitler and Stalin were famous as slaughterers of humankind, but the basic attitude in human society at the present time is not godly. It's demoniac, because even though many people may profess to believe in God, but it's very vague and they have no clear idea of what is to be done and what is not to be done according to Scripture. They don't recognize the importance of Scripture, and they consider that, well, we can believe in God in our own way. This apparent believing in God is actually practically demoniac unless we accept Him as He is, as is given in Scripture, and what are the rules and regulations in Scripture. But in the modern age, we have adopted the utilitarian principle that whatever is good for humankind, that should be done. And what is not good should not be done. But we don't know what's good, because we consider humankind only in terms of the body and the mind, and we don't recognize that apart from humankind, there are so many other living creatures also. For instance, at the present time, it's propagated in that it's very good that we should have people eating more and more meat and fish and eggs. This is going on in India at the present time, although in Western countries there's a very strong trend away from flesh food and towards vegetarian food. But somehow or other in India they're thinking, well, we have to eat more protein and we'll become more healthy. But we may think, well, that's very good for our strength, but it's very bad for the animals who are slaughtered. They suffer. Millions of animals are being slaughtered, and we get karmic reactions. So we may think it's very good. We'll slaughter the animals and we'll export the leather and we'll increase the gross national product and we'll make the country progress in this way. But the net result is that people become more and more sinful and demoniac because they don't know. The rules of Scripture are there. They're not just arbitrary. They're not just made up. They're not mythology. The rules of the Shastra or the Scripture, they are given by God, and if we follow them, then we are suitably rewarded by Him. And if we don't, then it's the laws of nature, the infallible laws of the universal government that we cannot escape. That if we act sinfully, we have to get the result of that. For instance, that example, the word in Sanskrit for meat, that comes through in Hindi and other languages, mans. So that comes from mam, me, and saha, he, me, he. In other words, now me, I'm eating this being, I'm eating his flesh, and in future, according to the karmic rules, he will have the opportunity to eat me. That is what happens. What goes around comes around, but the demoniac, they don't believe in this. They say, we don't believe in this. We're making progress by science, and in the meantime there's so many earthquakes and tsunamis and terrorism, and they wonder, well, why is this happening? But they don't see the reason is that we are getting karmic reaction because we are demoniac, even though we talk about be good, be nice to others, but we don't know what it means to be nice to others because we have a anti-Krishna outlook on life. We don't want to recognize that we are supposed to live our lives in tandem with the rules that are given by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore we invent our own standards. Neither cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truth is found in such persons. We see that until recently, generally in India, the society was, we could say, more or less godly. Now it has become ungodly to a large extent. Just like, for instance, previously people used to rise early, take bath, and spend, it was a normal thing. People would spend time early in the morning for doing prayer, study of scripture, meditation, worship. But now people get up late, and they have no religious interest, and they just rush off to work. So their life is like some rat. They run off to work, and they're in the rat race, and they're envious of everyone else. They can't trust anyone else. They have no deep friendship with anyone, not even their husband or wife. And they come back and full of anxiety, and they spend whatever little time they have maybe watching some useless thing on TV, and they go to sleep. And they have sex and go to sleep. And this is their life, rat's life. They have no higher interest, demoniac way of life. They don't know what is the nasatyam teshu. They don't know what is the supreme absolute truth. Human life is meant for elevation of consciousness, to understand who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But instead, because we are in this demoniac civilization, our consciousness is going down, 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 down. More lust, more greed. In modern or in demoniac society, the more we increase the more they increase the lust and the greed and the anger and the frivolousness and the hollowness, we think this is progressive. We have no idea of the scripturally ordained life meant for living peacefully in sattva gun, in the mode of goodness, which is meant for elevation to Krishna consciousness. Now, the outlook, the whole trend of human society, the whole ethos which is set up in a Vedic society that is meant for God realization, is quite different to that of the society that is set up for sense gratification. And one example of that, I'm going to read from Srila Prabhupada's purport, one passage which many people find shocking. Srila Prabhupada writes how women are not to be given freedom. He cites this as an example of how people in the modern age, they do not follow the scriptural injunctions. Srila Prabhupada writes that in Hindu society, the Manu Samhita should be followed. But then we find modern Hindus, big intellectuals, rascals, so-called intellectuals, they decry Manu. They say, well, Manu was biased, he was wrongly upholding the Brahmanas, and he had so many wrong ideas. They say this because they do not know what is the divine purpose of Scripture. They presume that the Scripture is meant for exploiting others because that's all they can think of doing, is exploiting others. Now, Prabhupada writes here that in the Manu Samhita it is clearly stated that women should not be given freedom. That does not mean that women are to be kept as slaves, but they are like children. Children are not given freedom, but that does not mean that they are kept as slaves. The demons have now neglected such injunctions, and they think that women should be given as much freedom as men. However, this has not improved the social condition of the world. Actually, a woman should be given protection at every stage of life. She should be given protection by the father in her younger days, by the husband in her youth, and by the grown-up sons in her old age. This is proper social behavior according to the Manu Samhita. But modern education has artificially devised a puffed-up concept of womanly life, and therefore marriage is practically now an imagination in human society. Nor is the moral condition of woman very good now. The demons therefore do not accept any instruction which is good for society, And because they do not follow the experience of the great sages and the rules and regulations laid down by the sages, the social condition of the demoniac people is very miserable. Now, we can just imagine how much people, they protest against this idea. No, women should be given freedom. Why should they not be allowed to live their lives as they like? But the Vedic society, based on the Vedic principles of uplift of the soul, has a completely different outlook to that of modern society. First of all, women should be given protection. Why protection? Well, physically they're weak, and even mentally or emotionally, sentimentally, they can be easily exploited. So that which is precious requires protection, just like children. They require to be protected. Now, if women are given freedom, as is recommended in the modern age, let them enjoy themselves, but that's the difference. That in demoniac society, they think the purpose of life is to enjoy our senses. But in Vedic society, the idea is that the whole society should be developed in such a way that everyone can make spiritual advancement. And when men and women mix freely, then calm or lust automatically increases. And when lust increases, we become demoniac, like Ravana stealing not only Sita, but so many women. He was just lusty, therefore he didn't care to follow any Vedic principles. Or not this one anyway. So he was harassing women, kidnapping women. So the idea is that women, their role in human society is very precious because they give birth to children, and they are the first gurus of the children. They have to train them in good behavior and train them in basic human principles. They have to give their mothers love. Now, if the woman is just thinking, well, how I can enjoy myself, then she won't want to look after her children properly. And that we see in the modern age, how children being neglected, they become themselves very envious and spiteful. There's no love. They don't experience mother's love because the mother's too busy working or enjoying or going to some party, and for her the children are more or less a nuisance. So the Vedic concept is that women, they're so valuable, they must be protected so that they can develop their higher qualities, and so that this free mixing of man and woman doesn't go on. There are principles. Marriage is a religious sacrament in any civilized society. It's not just a contract between a man and a woman, but it is an agreement that we should live together to bring up children in God consciousness. That is the element missing in demoniac society. They think, oh, women could do so much more, they have so much potential, but they don't realize that what women do by bringing forth children and caring for them and looking after them, that in itself is the most important thing they can do, and which they, by their natural psychophysical condition, they want to do. So that the demoniac, they go against even the principles of human nature by trying to make women into men and then men into women, and there's no clear distinction. And the result is chaos. Modern society, they think, oh, we're very advanced, we have all these modern ideas, but it's chaos. And the mental diseases are practically more than physical diseases, because people, they don't know what their role is. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Vedic society, it's clear, it's guided. This is your position in society, this is your duty, this you have to follow, and you do this, Swakarmana tamabhyacha siddhing vindati manavaha. You do the duty prescribed for you. You don't have to worry about getting this job or that job. Your duty is already chalked out. You do that, and at the same time worship the Supreme Lord, and you can achieve the perfection of life. But in modern society, they very foolishly and very arrogantly think that whatever was done in the past, that was all foolish and backward, and now we know better. And then knowing better means that instead of upholding, there's just one example, instead of upholding the chastity of women and the purity of women, they think it's very good if they go around with clothes showing off their bodies and have pornography. Look at this internet. They developed this internet, and what's the result? The main business on the internet is pornography. Just see. These people, demoniac society, simply like dogs and cats, simply interested in sex. This is a degradation of human society. So, practically speaking, the demoniac society has got everything back to front, upside down, inside out. Even if we are to accept Bhagavad Gita as it is, if we are to accept Krishna consciousness, then we have to accept it in toto. We can't say, yes, well, I think I'll be a devotee of Krishna, and at the same time I'll run around with all different women, or I'll be a playful young girl and run around and have so many boyfriends. It doesn't work. We have to follow Krishna's orders, which are given in Shastra. The essence of the highest spiritual principles are given in Bhagavad Gita as it is. And then for regulating human society, there are Dharma Shastras, Niti Shastras. All of this has to be understood. Actually, a complete change is required in human society. They're very gallantly and jubilantly marching 100% in the wrong direction. And as a result, although we don't like to admit it, there are so many problems in human society, and we think we're making things better. So Srila Prabhupada had a vision. He wanted to change the whole course of human society. He wasn't just another religious preacher, but he wanted to change the course of human society by giving the Vedic principles, not just some washed out, shallow Hinduism, but the actual Vedic principles given by Lord Krishna, which if we follow, then in human society there can be relative stability and peace as much as is possible in this turbulent world. And within that atmosphere, God consciousness, Krishna consciousness can be very nicely practiced. So these principles should be understood. Srila Prabhupada is not another sentimental religious preacher, but he's pointing out that the whole society is on the wrong course. Try to recognize this. Try to understand that following the masses means going to hell, because everyone is acting in a demoniac way. If you just act like a normal person in modern life, you just do what everyone expects you to do, then you're going to commit sin at every step. Because modern life, they're recommending eat meat and then illicit sex and maybe a little bit religion, but not too much. No. It is required that we come out of this demoniac consciousness. First of all, understand that practically everything we've been taught in the school, on the TV, even at home by our families, the idea, material progress, we should become big, we should become a material success. This is all a demoniac way of thinking. The proper way of thinking, or the way that is actually beneficial for us, is to understand our position of ultimate, complete subordination to Krishna. Just recognize that and act accordingly. That is the strong message given in Bhagavad Gita and amplified by Srila Prabhupada. Please think about it. Please read this Bhagavad Gita as it is. Hare Krishna.
The ancient wisdom that you have just heard is contained in the publications of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust.